Welcome to the Deep Dive. We dig into the sources to pull out the key insights for you. Today we're doing a deep dive into something called forever chemicals. Now these aren't just, science fiction. They're real substances that just don't seem to break down naturally in our environment. Our mission today, to explore some really groundbreaking science that's found, a surprising way to maybe tackle this global problem. It's based on a major new study from Catholic University in Piacenza.
Right. We're talking about per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. PFAS is the common acronym, and you might not even realize it, but these things are everywhere. Seriously, check your cosmetics, food packaging, maybe your nonstick pans, detergents, even water-repellent clothes. Chances are PFAS are involved. It's their properties, They repel water and oil, which has made them incredibly useful.
But that usefulness, it comes with a really significant catch, doesn't it? That same chemical stability that makes them work so well. That's also what makes PFAS a major worry for our health and the environment too. We're seeing potential links to things like diabetes, hormonal issues, and the heart of the problem is that chemical structure. It's this incredibly strong bond between carbon and fluorine atoms. That bond is just so tough. Natural processes struggle to break it down, hence the nickname, forever chemicals. Kind of chilling.
Exactly. And because they're so stable, they build up, they accumulate in ecosystems in our bodies. Plus, they're highly mobile. They can spread easily, contaminating soil, water, everything. The sources we're looking at today, though, focus on some new research offering a potential way forward, a natural way to actually break down these persistent compounds.
Okay, so before we get into the exciting part, the bacteria, let's really understand the scale of this contamination problem. The studies we reviewed, they really zero in on the severity by looking at a specific, very heavily impacted area, the province of Piacenza in Italy. The thinking is that local industry there led to widespread contamination.
And the numbers are pretty stark. The data shows PFAS pollution has seeped into groundwater, soil, even crops and drinking water. We're talking concentrations hitting levels over 1,000 nanograms per liter in some cases. It just shows how these chemicals, once they're out there, they can really spread and persist, creating these invisible toxic zones.
Wow. Okay, so that sets the stage. But as you said, amidst this pretty bleak picture, there's this natural solution emerging. The study we're focusing on found that certain bacteria, just regular soil bacteria, might actually be able to break down these eternal pollutants.
It seems almost too simple, right? Tiny microbes tackling this huge chemical problem. It really is a fascinating discovery. The research lead was Professor Edoardo Puglisi from Catholic University in Piacenza, and he collaborated with Professor Giancarlo Ranella's team over at the University of Padua. Their findings were considered so important they were actually presented at a major European environmental toxicology conference, CITAC Europe, just last month in Vienna, May 2025.
So how did they do it? How do you even find bacteria that can eat something like PFAS? The approach taken by the experts at Cattolica University sounds, pretty clever. They started by looking at the microbes living in soils already contaminated with PFAS, right from those heavily polluted spots in northern Italy, Veneto, Piacenza, and Padua.
Exactly. They went straight to the source.
Yeah.
And they used a combination of methods. First, kind of old-school classical microbiology techniques to isolate bacteria they thought might be doing something interesting, but then they added a modern layer. Metabarcoding?
Metabarcoding, that's the DNA sequencing thing.
Right. It lets you rapidly identify lots of different species in a sample based on their DNA. And crucially, it can give you hints about what they might be capable of doing, like bioremediation. But here's the really interesting part, the challenge maybe. How do you get microbes to focus on eating something they wouldn't normally, target?
Ah, okay. And that leads to this enrichment process you mentioned, which sounds quite ingenious. Professor Puglisi explained they essentially, trained these bacteria.
Kind of. They cultivated them in a special lab setting, a growth medium where PFAS was the only thing available for them to eat, the sole source of carbon and energy.
Wow, so it was literally eat PFAS or die, basically.
Pretty much. It forces any bacteria that can adapt to develop or enhance the pathways needed to break down these chemicals just to survive.
Okay, that makes sense. And the results of this PFAS boot camp?
Well, they're really promising. So far, they've isolated around 20 different bacterial species. And this is crucial. They've already sequenced the complete genomes for all 20 of these PFAS eating strains.
20 complete genomes. That's a huge amount of data, right?
It is. It gives you a deep blueprint of what these bacteria are capable of.
And what about how well they actually break down the PFAS?
Right.
The efficiency. The sources mentioned degradation rates, sometimes above 30%. Now, for someone like me, maybe our listeners too, who aren't chemists,
Yeah.
is 30% good? Is that amazing or just a start?
That's a really important question. So in the context of PFAS, which are notoriously hard to break down, getting over 30% degradation in lab conditions, yes, that's actually considered very high. It's definitely a very promising start.
Okay.
It's maybe not the magic bullet for cleaning up entire regions overnight, but it's a significant breakthrough for this class of compounds. And what's also really encouraging is which bacteria are doing this. The types they identify, genera like Micrococcus, Rhodonobacter, Pseudoxanthomonas, Achromobacter, these aren't completely unknown families. Their relatives are already known players in bioremediation, cleaning up other kinds of pollutants.
Ah, okay. So it's like finding out a reliable workhorse can learn a surprising new trick.
Exactly. It suggests we're tapping into existing microbial capabilities that can be perhaps coaxed into tackling this newer, tougher challenge.
Well, you mentioned practical advantages too.
Yeah, a couple of big ones. These particular bacteria are apparently quite easy to grow in the lab. That's important for scaling up. And critically, they are generally not pathogenic, meaning they're not harmful to humans. That removes a major hurdle for potential real-world use.
That's huge. So no risk of replacing one problem with another, like a harmful microbe bloom?
Right, that's always a consideration in bioremediation. And thinking bigger picture, getting those complete genomes is key for the future. Researchers can now dive into that genetic data and try to pinpoint the specific genes, the enzymes, that are actually responsible for breaking down the PFAS.
And if they find those genes, what then?
Well, that opens up all sorts of possibilities. Biotechnological applications, perhaps, maybe enhancing the bacteria or using just the enzymes, or finding ways to stimulate these bacteria directly in contaminated soil. Lots of potential avenues.
So it sounds like we're moving from basic discovery towards potential application. What are the immediate next steps for this research team?
They're already on it. The sources say tests are underway on different types of PFAS compounds. Remember, PFAS isn't just one chemical, it's a large family. And after that, they'll move to more complex lab experiments designed to mimic real-world conditions more closely to see how well the bacteria perform outside that highly controlled enrichment environment.
Right, checking if it works under less ideal, more representative conditions.
Exactly. It's that careful step-by-step process from the lab towards, hopefully, a practical solution. But ultimately, this research is already providing really valuable new knowledge about how PFAS can be degraded. And it could really boost the development of sustainable ways to clean up these contaminated environments using bioremediation. It's a fantastic reminder that nature often has solutions, even for problems we created.
It really is a powerful aha moment, isn't it? This idea that these tiny, easily overlooked soil bacteria might actually hold a key to dealing with such a massive environmental issue. And maybe the deeper insight is how we can potentially guide or train these natural processes, like with that enrichment technique, to tackle specific modern pollutants, turning contaminated sites back into healthy ones.
Absolutely. It just underscores how important this kind of fundamental science discovery is. For the environment, obviously, but for all of us, for our collective well-being. It's really about understanding and potentially leveraging nature's own toolkit to help fix some of the messes we've made.
So it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? As you consider all the challenges we face, what other forever problems, these persistent issues, might have solutions hidden right under our noses in the natural world, especially in that vast, largely unexplored microbial world? It seems like there's just so much potential still waiting to be discovered there. What else could nature help us solve if we just look closely enough?